Hello my dear friends, my name is Sanne and welcome back to another video. This is the first video of 2023. Crazy. It's currently storming outside, so I'm really sorry if you can hear the wind. It's really loud over here. But I was just feeling like, it's storming outside. It's the perfect time to just sit inside, get cozy, have a really nice cup of tea. Like I lit myself a nice scented candle. I have my Christmas tree still. I have my little Christmas mug with a cup of tea. It's not a little mug, by the way. It's pretty big. But, just get cozy. I have my blanket and just talk about some books. And I am a bit annoyed because usually when I talk about books I like to show them, but I have all of them over at my parents' place in boxes, so I can't show them to you. So I'm just gonna put up a picture so you know what I'm talking about. I just really like to hold on to a book while I'm talking about it. It just, I don't know, it adds to the vibes. It makes me I don't know, it's just nicer than having my hands. All doesn't matter. Today we're gonna talk about all the books I have read in 2022, but the second half of 2022, because I have done this type of video before, halfway through last year. So I talked about all the books I read up until, I think, July. You can check that video out first if you want, because together these two videos of course form my entire thing of what I've read in 2022. So today we're going to talk about the second half. So most of the books I'm talking about today I did read during summer, and then after summer I started my internship, and I think I finished like 2 books during the entire last 4 months of 2022. But it's fine, it doesn't matter. I read some fun books, so I'm gonna talk about them. So I'm just gonna do them in chronological order again. Also, keep in mind, I read these books during summer. So much has happened since then. My brain is full. It's already the next year. I can't guarantee that I still know everything, so I'm gonna try my best. The first book that I'm gonna talk about is The Road Trip by Beth, which I did do a full book review on, because I like to do them sometimes. I did 2 by now, but I want to do more of them because I really like doing them. But it's where I do a full review of the book, explain the entire plot of the book, like beginning to end, give my thoughts on everything, while I do my makeup inspired by the book. I've done it twice. It's just a really fun thing for me to do. It's really relaxing to just do 2 of my favorite things at the same time. So that doesn't matter. I'll link the video down below if you want to watch it, but let's talk about The Road Trip. So, The Road Trip is, I would say, a rom-com, but that's like a movie thing, right? I don't know. Like a romantic comedy, yeah. It's about a group of people who are heading to a wedding, and they are in separate cars, but then the 2 cars have a little accident. One of the cars is total loss, so they need to continue on with the trip, and they decide to take the trip to the wedding together, because it's a 16-hour drive or something. I'm not sure. It was a very long drive. So they decide to take the trip together. So it's 5 people in one very small car. And it just so happens to be that these people know each other. The main character, I really do not know her name anymore. I'm really sorry. She used to date one of the guys that was in the other car, and they had a very tumultuous relationship. That's what I liked about this book that was done really well. It kind of slowly gave away a little bit more about what happened in their relationship, and you have all the stuff in the now. So what's happening in the car during the drive, because a lot happens throughout the drive. It's the most chaotic road trip you've ever seen. Every time something similar happens, it's really interesting. It goes back to the past, and that's something you start noticing throughout the book. Someone was at the ER or something in the past, and then it goes back to someone being in the ER in the present. Just those kinds of things, which you start noticing, which is nice. So you go back and forth between past and present, and in the past you kind of start to learn about their relationship from the beginning, from the day they've met, and they met on vacation, and they just happen to have a common friend, I guess. I don't know, it's a bit weird. Some weird things happen. I don't know, it's just about their very chaotic relationship and what's going on and why they ended up breaking up, because of course she's in the car with her ex. So what happened until their breakup and why they're still mad at each other or not and whatever. And you learn about everything slowly. Some fun things happen. I actually really enjoyed reading the book, like going through it. There's a lot of things that I also did not like, or that I felt a bit flat. Because it's supposed, like, the entire book is about the romance, but the romance it just felt a bit flat to me. I couldn't really get into their relationship, like, I wasn't really rooting for them, you know? So yeah, I don't know. I enjoyed it. It was a fun read in general. It was a fun summer read as well. And I feel like I had a lot more opinions on it. Like, I made an entire video essay about this book. So it wasn't amazing. Writing style wasn't like, wow, but it was good. I liked it. Okay, then the second book is one that I don't know. I kind of bought on a whim. Because I went to the book market at my local church. And they were like 5 books for €1 or something. It was like really cheap. So I just got a bunch of books and I just picked a few. And I picked this one. So I got The Sisters Brothers by Patrick DeWitt, which is a Western, which I have never read a Western before. And I felt like I really liked the cover. So I decided I was just gonna get it and read it and, you know, try out a Western for once. And I really liked it. Like, it was action-packed. You know, like, everything was happening. So many things were happening. It's nice because you start really rooting for the main character. Because there's 2 brothers, of course. And they are mercenaries. But one of them is like, he kind of wants to step out of that life. And he wants to, you know, settle down, find a nice woman, that kind of thing. And there's something nice with his life. And I don't know, you kind of start rooting for him. Like, oh, sweetheart, I just want you to settle down and have like a nice relaxed life. Even though they have killed many people. But I don't know. It's fun. There's a lot going on. It's like one big adventure that they're going on. But a lot of stuff happened that it feels like many small adventures. And it's just, I don't know, I enjoyed it. The story is definitely not deep. It's just enjoyable because you're just gonna read about some cowboys shooting people in different settings, and then it's fun. I liked it. And then we have A Thick Boy Again, which is God Blind by Anna Steffens. This is the case with most of the books I read, by the way. I picked them up either at flea markets, thrift stores, or at the discount book bin. I am not really a type of person to go out and like really search the books that are popular and buy those. I usually just get any random book from a flea market or whatever that I think looks fun and I read it. So this one I found at the discount book section at the bookstore and I just really liked the cover. The cover was so pretty. It was like a dark fantasy, it said. So I was like, you know, sold. Anything with fantasy, nice. If it's also gory and such, it's fine, I can deal with it, that's fun. At first, I was really confused about this book. Like, thoroughly. Because, God, there's so much story building in the beginning. So much. Because every single chapter is from a different character's point of view. But there's like 14 different characters. Or like 11 or something that have their point of view shown. Which is really interesting. Because there's so much going on. And it makes a lot of sense. Like, because it's... Okay, what is it? What it's about. I'll try to explain. You have this country. A long time ago, like 1,000 years ago, there were 2 different types of gods. You have the blood gods or the... I don't know what they're called. Earth gods or something. I'm not sure. But you have 2 types of gods. The blood gods and the other one. And you either for the blood gods or the other ones. And 1,000 years ago, everyone who was honoring the blood gods was banished to the mountains because the blood gods honor some really weird habits like slavery, the use of women in many different ways, murder, torture, those sorts of things. Like almost everything that's kind of like bad in the world is done to honor those blood gods. So the red gods, I think they're called. by the way, the red gods. 1,000 years ago, everyone who honored those red gods was banished towards the mountains. So you have like a whole folk, like people living there. They had this prophecy that after 1,000 years, they would return and take over the city and the country again. So that's kind of where this story starts. And you have a lot of different POVs, which is really fun. Because you also get POVs from both sides. Like people that honor the red gods, people that honor the other gods. And you get like people from both sides. So also kind of like the bad guys and the good guys. You see both their POVs. And so much happens in this book. It's so interesting. It's really good. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. Especially with all the different POVs. I had to get used to it in the beginning because you get a POV from a different person every single time. And then you have different names. And you're like, who the fuck is this? Who is that? Who is that? I have no idea who that person is. Were they here before? A lot going on. But after a few chapters, the story is established. And then you're like, I get it. And then you get all the different people and you start rooting for all the different people. And it's so interesting. I also really like the fact that it's about religion. And it's clear there's like good religion and bad religion, I guess. Because one of them murders and assaults people and slavery and everything. So it is, I think, morally, objectively noted that is like that's not really good religion, I guess. Going into it, I was afraid that it was gonna be like they were making hints to religions that exist right now. Basically, I was just afraid that it was gonna be like Islamophobic or anti-Semitic or something like that. Like there were clear and obvious hints towards religions that people practice today. But that's really not the case at all. Like, this is some clear stuff that is not in this earth. But there's a clear difference between good and bad or good and evil. Without, like, dragging down an actual religion. That's what I was afraid of, but that's not the case. So, I just really liked it. Yeah, I really liked it. So yes, if you're really into dark fantasy, watch out. It does get really gory and there's definitely some trigger warnings for abuse, sexual abuse, that kind of stuff. I can give a lot of trigger warnings for this book, but if you can read stuff like that, this book was really good. I really liked it. Also, we got some fun LGBTQ representation at some point, which is nice. And I'm just gonna talk about the next part as well, because I read this later on in the year, but just to make sure it's not confusing. So I read part 2 of this series because it is a trilogy, and I must say part 1 does end in sort of a cliffhanger, so just so you know, if you're not into that, then you know. Part 2 is called Dark Soul, and god, the story just gets wilder and wilder. There's so much going on. I'm getting like more confused and more intrigued at the second. I must say, like, the second one is a bit less interesting to me. In part 1, you have a lot more different situations because you're moving up to that point to where the people who honor the red gods will go and attack and try and get back their country. And in part 2, it's mainly the same situation. Like, a lot of different things happen, but all in the same setting, which got a bit boring at some point. I'm like, can we just move on? It is realistic, like time point wise, but at some point I was just like, can we just have just a tiny bit different? Because it's just getting a bit too much of the same. But yeah, I liked it a lot. I am gonna read part 3 sometime soon. I don't know yet when, because it is like, these books are a lot to take in. There's so much information, so many different characters, a lot of world building, story building, so it is something that takes time, because the books are also not really that small, actually. So I don't know when I'm in the mood to read a complicated book like that sometime soon. But I will read it this year. That's my goal. Because I really enjoyed part 1 and 2, and I really want to know how it ends. Then we're gonna continue in the chronological order again. So next book I read was The House on Half Moon Street by Alex Reeve, which is a sort of murder mystery, I guess. I don't know in what setting it is. I think it's like Victorian era London. I don't know. I'm not good at like eras and such. I'm really bad at it. But you have the main character. He works as a coroner's assistant, and at some point, the next murder victim that comes in is a prostitute who is actually his girlfriend. So at first, he himself is arrested, of course, for the murder, because it's his girlfriend, but he did not do it, so he's gonna go out and try and clear his name and find out who killed his girlfriend and what's going on and what kind of plot is happening over there, which the storyline in itself was fun. I must say I don't really remember very well what the ending was, like who actually killed her, like what happened. So I can't say actually. I'm really sorry. I won't say because it's a spoiler, but I really don't remember. So I feel like it was not that memorable. One thing that I want to note about this book is the main character is also transgender, which first of all, I really enjoy seeing more like transgender representation in books and media. However, the writer is not trans. He once read something about being trans in Victorian era London and he found it very interesting, so he did research on it and then decided to write a character that is trans in that era, which at some points I feel like it's a bit like I can't say what goes on in a trans person's mind because I am not transgender. However, I feel like he also can't do that. So with some of the thoughts that the character has, I'm like, I'm not really sure if that's like an actual thought a person would have, but also maybe it could be. I can't say, but also he can't really say because neither of us is trans. So it made me feel a tiny bit weird that such like a big part of this main character and such a big part of this book. It's not like this person just happens to be trans. It was a big side plot to the book that of all the struggles this person faces being trans in this era. So it was a big plot and I feel like it's a tiny bit weird as someone who has absolutely no clue what it is even like to be trans, let alone trans in that era. Like you did research on it, but I don't know if you can really describe your thoughts like as, I don't know. Maybe I'm just rambling, I don't know how to, it just made me feel a tiny bit weird. I like seeing more transgender representation, but it's a bit weird that this transgender character and their thoughts about being transgender were written by someone who is not transgender and does not have that experience. I don't know if I'm like looking too deep into this, let me know. But that's my thought. In general, it was just a decent like murder mystery. Okay, then we have a really thin book, which I will also explain really quickly. It's called De mooiste dagen zijn het ergst by Anke Scheren. It's a Dutch book. It's a really small book. It's like a thin novel about a woman who is dealing with the grief of losing her mother, with whom she did not have like a really healthy relationship, I'm pretty sure. I don't know, it's just kind of like her thoughts on everything and how she deals with the grief and depression and everything. And it's kind of poetic in a way. I just like the way it was written. Like I did have some passages that was like, I can relate to this, or that really hits home, or it was just nicely written. I liked it. But just a really, really quick read. I think it was like 100 pages. So, and a really small book as well. The next we have Whispers from the Dead by Joan Laurie Nixon, which is, I believe, a children's book. Like a teen, I don't know what, it says 12 and up on the side, but it's a bit of a paranormal book. It's about a girl who nearly dies by drowning. And after that, she can feel some kind of connection to the dead. And they move to a new house, and that house seems to be a bit haunted. Like, she gets some messages from the other side in that house. And then she has a murder to solve with the help of the ghosts, basically. It was interesting, it was fun. It was a bit creepy at times, not too creepy. I need the amount of creepy that a 12-year-old book has. So it was good. I don't know, quick read, lovely. It was just enjoyable. The next we have, I think, one of my favorite books from this year, which is Rattle by Fiona Cummins. It was really good. I read the Dutch version. Like most of these books I did read the Dutch version of, just so you know, but I really thoroughly enjoyed this book. This is about a man who has a bone museum in his house, and he collects bones and skeletons of unique individuals with specific bone conditions. And he has set his eye on a little boy with a very unique bone condition. I do not know what it is anymore. I'm really sorry. But he has a unique bone condition. And I think he's like really, really fragile. And then when he breaks his bones, more bones grow than is necessary. So, you know, he's kind of like creating a shield of bone on top of his own skeleton. That's it, I think. And this man has set his eyes on this little boy. So this entire book is like written from the POV of the bone collector and the parents of the little boy. And it just goes back and forth. And it's just so eerie and creepy because this bone collector has had his eyes on this boy for a little while. And he's like stalking him. And he knows so much about him. And he's getting so close to that boy already. And then from the father's POV, you don't notice any of that. And no one knows who this man is. And it's so... And then there's like a really climactic end, like so much going on. Plot twists, information coming out from like earlier. It's good. It's just really good. And the way it was written as well, it was so good. I have never understood why people take the time to read a book and then while they're reading they're like highlighting quotes and tabbing the pages and such. I never really understood that because I don't know, there's just already so much more effort while reading. But with this book, I had so many pages I was like, oh my god, I wish I had a highlighter with me so I could highlight this. Because this quote, this line, this paragraph is just so good. I don't know if it's just as good as in English, of course, but in Dutch, it's really, really good. And the writing style, I really enjoyed it. And the book had me on the edge of my seat the entire time. I really, really enjoyed it. I am also definitely gonna read part 2. And I might read this one again, because I want to go back and highlight those quotes, because they're just so good. Rattle, amazing book, I loved it. Then we have a really thick one again, which is Watermelon by Marion, which is also more of a like romance, drama, rom-com. I'm really not good at describing genres at all. I'm sorry. But this is about a woman who is having a baby with her boyfriend, but then like literally in her hospital bed, holding her newborn baby that she just gave birth to like 10 minutes ago. The husband tells her, hey, I've been having an affair with the downstairs neighbor. I'm leaving you, goodbye. You know, that's fun. Definitely also a great moment to announce that, I guess. So she's just, you know, distraught. And this book is just basically her getting back on her feet, learning to live as a single woman, having to deal with her ex. Oh no, it's her husband even. Yeah, because she had to deal with like divorce papers and everything. But they had to deal with her ex, everything that's going on. She moves back into her parents' house with her sisters and just the bond between them and their relationship, how that grows over time with the baby as well. It's interesting. Some new love interest. There's a lot going on. I did really like this book. I liked the storyline. I liked how it progressed. I liked, I really liked like I enjoyed what happened. I just feel like this book could have been so much thinner. It was like 600 pages. Okay, so I checked and this book was 520 pages. Half of them could have been deleted. Just because a thing throughout this book, this character is really written as being a bit quirky and having so many thoughts, and it at some point it gets a bit annoying how much is diverted from the actual story for her thoughts, because her thoughts are like so pointless. Like she arrives at her parents' place and the next 3 pages is just her thoughts explaining like, oh, and I love my dad is so funny, my dad did this for a prank once, and then haha, we all laughed about it, and then my sister did this and then did this, and this entire situation gets explained that has nothing to do with the story. It's mainly to show like her quirky family and her quirkiness and how she has so many thoughts and is always rambling about everything, and it's just a bit too much sometimes. But in general, the book is fun. I liked it. It's definitely not one of my favorites, but it was like a fun read. You have 2 books left. Only 2. Oh my gosh, so quick. One of them is Angel Fall by Sanne, which I also won't explain too much about because I did go on a full rant about this book in my book review video. I did another spoilery book review about this one, and I don't know, if you want something like, you really do not need to read this book. I don't think there's anything actually good about this book. I really would not recommend this book on any way. Like, the writing is not good, the story is lacking, the characters have no depth at all, the romance is flat. It's like really trashy, kinda. That's kinda what makes it a little bit good. That fact that it's trashy, but there's so much wrong with the story. So like, I really would not recommend this book, but also I really want to read part 2 just because I want to know what happens. But also, it's trashy, don't read it, but if you want to hear it about it, just go watch the video because it's chaotic and the story is wild and so much happens and there's so much shit that's wrong. Like, wrong with this book, in my opinion. Like, really, really wrong. Like, ableism, a lot of ableism in this book. It's gross. It's the entire pick-me girl character having a 16-year-old girl fall for a million-year-old angel. I don't know, there's a lot wrong with this book. I did read all of it. The ending was kind of fun because it was kind of like, oh my gosh, so much going on. That was kind of fun, but besides that, a lot wrong. Especially this 16 or 17-year-old girl, I can't really remember how old she's either 16 or 17. She gets sexualized so much throughout this entire book. So much. And it's really weird. It grosses me out. I wouldn't recommend this book, but if you want to hear the story, just watch the video because, I don't know, it's kind of funny. And I like to go on rants, so if you want to hear a rant, go listen to it. But yeah, no, I would not recommend this book at all. No. And then we're getting to the final book, which I feel like there's like a almost 2-month difference between when I read Angel Fall and when I read this book. Because I don't know, I just could not get through anything. I could not get started on anything. Just reading was not it for me. And then I got this book for my birthday. And then I finished it during the winter holidays, Christmas break. Because I had some more time. And then I just read it in one day. I guess half of it at least. A Court of Mist and Fury. Of course, because I read A Court of Thorns and Roses earlier this year. I'm so in between on these books. Because on the one hand, I absolutely freaking love them. And I want to read all of them. I literally Amazon Primed the next one just so I could have it the next day. So I could start reading on it already when I finish this. So, you know, I already have part 3. It's just really good. But it's also like so terrible. But it's so good. And some of the, like, I can't deal with some of the writing. That's mainly it. Like, the writing is not always there for me. Mainly because I get annoyed by some things. Like, especially repetitive things. I have an issue with, there was this book, I don't know which book it was. There was another book that I got really annoyed by. Because they kept using metaphors in every single chapter. For no reason. I don't know, I could not deal with it. And this book, in the beginning, I could not deal with it. Because I feel like she literally said armed to the teeth like 6 times in the first 3 chapters. I feel like that's a phrase she learned while writing this and then decided this is good, we're gonna keep using that. So I could not deal with that. One thing I cannot deal with is when books use male and female instead of woman and man or whatever, child, boy. I really just do not like the use of male and female. I just don't like it. I don't know why, but I don't like it. But yeah, I definitely, like, I read through this last part in like a day. Like the last half. I loved it. Rysand, and I call him Rysand. I really don't know if that's how you pronounce his name. I love Rysand. He's great. Also, sometimes it gets a bit too furry for me. Like, especially the smut scenes where they are like, I growl at him and I'm like, okay. Like, I cannot deal with some of the writing in this, but it also makes it a bit more funny for me. Because usually I just laugh about things like that, because they're just so ridiculous. And then it's like, it adds a bit more fun to the book, to me as well. I liked it a lot. I'm excited to read part 3, so that's what we're gonna do this year. That's some of my reading goals for this year. We're gonna read sequels from things that I read last year. So we're gonna read Got Blind Part 3, the Rattle Part 2, A Court of Thorns and Roses Part 3. I feel like that's mainly it. I want to read those 3. And I have a lot more books over here that I want to read and I'm really excited about. So I hope I can get through a few more books next year, because this year I read 31. So this year I'm going for about 30 again. That should be doable. Especially with how much I read during the summer and such. I'll have some more free time soon and then I can read a bit more. But yeah, those were all the books I read in 2022. Don't forget to watch part 1, like the halfway point, if you want to hear about all the books I've read. Hopefully this video wasn't too long. But yeah, I'm really excited for all the videos that we're gonna do in 2023 and all the books that I'm gonna read, and I'll keep you updated. If you want like live updates more, I'll link my Goodreads down below. And you can also follow me on Instagram, because I do share my books on my stories. Like if I finish one, I'll share it on my stories already. That's it. Those were all the books I've read in 2022. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you want to see more from me. If you want to see even more from me, my blog, my socials, my gaming channel, and everything else you need to know about me is linked down below, so you can check that out as well. And that's gonna be it for me today. I want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Toodles!